Hey, Stu.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Healthy as I can be, happy as I can be, and whole as I can be. What about you, brother?
Yeah, no, things are good on our end. We're just bunkered down and
Hey,
and
man.
yeah, making the most of it.
I've got a 40-acre farm in the mountains of southeast Kentucky. So I've been social distancing by about 30 acres for about 5 years. So I'm kind of used to being out here by myself. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's very cool.
That's good, man. Yeah, I thought about you when all this started breaking out, and you were gone. You Aren't you out of the country when this kind of started rolling out?
Yeah,
Or
we had to scramble back. We were in Puerto Rico, and we usually go for an extended period of time to get away from the Canadian winter. And so we were there a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden this starts to really hit. And I was also supposed to speak in an event there, and so this started to like come on strong. So I was like, okay, well, we'll move our return trip up a week, and we did. And then my parents are pinging me saying like, you got to get home, like the prime minister is going to close the border.
oh my
And
gosh.
so then we're just like, okay, so we moved it up to literally like a couple days later. And yeah, and then we got home, and when we crossed the border, like the border guards are like, you have to stay home, like you're quarantined for 14 days, meaning you
Oh my
can't go
gosh.
anywhere. And yeah, so it's pretty legit. So anyway, yeah, we got home, and we've been quarantined since. And it's fine, it's just inconvenient,
Yeah. I got a
but
buddy up in Toronto. So I've been kind of keeping up with what's going on up there. And I went to California on March on like February 29th. I was there till the 2nd I was doing like a side event for Social Media Marketing World.
yeah.
Came back and I got freaking sick. I
Oh
mean,
no.
dude, I couldn't breathe. My lungs started hurting. I had a slight fever, but not the fever they say that they're getting with the COVID. And
Yeah.
I went to the emergency room, and they tested me, and I had a respiratory infection. They knew, but there were no tests. And they said, hey, if you can hunker down and just take it, we'll come back if you
Wow.
can't breathe. It was crazy. They sent me home. And there was about 4 days. I think that some of it, though, was the panic and anxiety of, do I have this thing?
Yeah.
We had just Jocelyn had just went to Mexico, so we had both been traveling, and
Yeah.
then everything broke loose, man. It was just like
Yeah. It's
crazy,
it
dude.
it yeah, it's I think at the end of the day, like, you know, it's a tremendously serious thing. Like, I'm obviously very concerned on the health side. I have a good friend of ours who's an ER nurse, so she's on the front lines of it.
Oh, God,
She's
I'll
had to
pray for her.
move, like she moved into a trailer, into a driveway to keep separation from her kids and her husband.
Oh,
Then of course, like, there's the ripple effect in all businesses, like particularly the brick and mortar. I've got one of the groomsmen in my wedding years ago. He owns a restaurant, and I've got a friend who owns a brewery and coffee shops and retail shops, and all of that's just come to a crashing halt. So that side of it really sucks.
yes.
But then there's the other side of it, which is the online side, which, like, quite frankly, it's booming right now.
Not gonna
And
lie, man. Our sales were up. Get this. You want to hear a weird membership to be working right now? And I'll hit record in a minute. We'll actually talk about all this, because this is what this podcast is. Actually, it's just two dudes who run memberships talking about stuff. You know what I'm saying? And run or know about things. But
yeah,
I have an education company. So we used to have a site called elementarylibrarian.com. We sold that, but we kept our history education thing. So we provide lesson plans and curriculum for schools all over the country.
wow,
And dude, but we sell them to the individual teacher, not the school district necessarily. So it's a
yeah,
membership model. Dude, we were up 20% last month. When
wow,
they started canceling schools, our sales went whoosh.
yeah,
And it's because I sent an email that said, hey, we're going to loosen our licensing restrictions so you can upload our stuff into databases, because all these teachers are using Google Classroom now.
yeah.
And people are just, because now they have to actually show resources. It's not just them in their classroom. And our sales spiked on that company, man.
That's fascinating. So you basically, because we have a whole bunch of teachers in our tribe who are doing the same thing, who, we're providing teachers lesson plans, and now they've pivoted, and they're providing those same lesson plans now to parents, because there's millions of us at home with young kids who,
Yes,
like, have no clue what to do, and yet we now have all of a sudden become a homeschooling teacher.
that's right. That's
Um,
right.
yeah, so that's fascinating. That's
What I did last year. I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to start talking, and we'll see where this goes, because
okay.
that's how this podcast rolls, baby. We're just talking. But like, and I'll steer it back to ask you questions, because I took some notes at FlynnCon. I missed you at FlynnCon, because we spoke on one day, and I think you spoke on the next day.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
I
Yeah.
think we ships in the night of there. But I did write a couple things down I wanted to ask you about. But what we're going to do too is, I think we've been planning on doing this for a while, but catalysts always force your hand to do something faster.
Yeah.
I want to go. I hired a guy last week. He's going to come in, and we have PowerPoints in our teaching thing. This might be something you can share with your people. So I hired him. I'm going to pay him $20 a PowerPoint to read them and teach them. He's a teacher.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to clone our teacher site. I actually own homeschoolhistoryteacher.com.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put those videos there because I homeschooled last year and we couldn't really get it right. So we put our kids back in school.
Yeah.
But I did learn that the curriculums online are terrible. Like, they don't help the homeschool parent, right?
Right.
What you need is a teacher to teach it, and you need an automated learning check that they can click a button on, like something in Kajabi or Teachable, right?
Yeah.
And then once they submit, maybe there's some printable resources. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just launch that over the next couple of weeks and just throw that out there into the marketplace and say, hey, all you people who have a high school junior or sophomore that are needing to get this AP history done, needing to get this stuff done, give this a try. And I'm going to try and launch it for like $9 a month and just see what happens.
I think it'll do really well, man. I mean, like, there's millions and millions of parents who have no clue what to do other than we don't want our kids vegging in front of the TV or on the iPads.
And getting behind for the rest of their life.
Yeah, we want them being productive. But like, it's a struggle because, like, not only that, but you got all these parents who want to teach their kids but have no clue where to start, and they're trying to figure out like how to manage their day because there's still a work day in there that they got to somehow figure out as well. So it's a whole big, opportunity in my opinion, because it's just created a new problem. And I think anytime you can solve that problem quickly for people and make it easy, because the other thing that a couple of people were asking was like, well, wait a minute, like there's a ton of free resources online. And I'm like, yeah, but also keep in mind, like, the parents don't have time to sift and sort through all that stuff.
No,
they don't want to sift and sort through all that stuff. They just want somebody to tell them what to do and what to teach,
Right,
so
yeah. We always tell people one of the teaching points, because all we teach is memberships now. That's all we teach is people how to build recurring revenue. I always tell people, like, when someone says, like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I teach real families how to get 100 people to pay them $50 a month and make $60,000 a year. That's what I do. You want to go buy the Ferrari and the Lamborghini and whatever you want to do, I'll send you to the next guy. But my job is to get you out of the slavery of the job and into the freedom of your own work, right?
Yeah.
And but like we always tell people, say that to us all the time, like, well, content's free everywhere. Yeah, but curation's not.
Right.
Curation is the path, the blueprint, the step by step, hey, grab my hand and I'll shine the light on the path for you. Like that's what a membership community really offers people that you cannot find just surfing the web.
People are not paying for information. They're paying for clarity.
Yeah.
And they want to know what the next step is. They don't want to have to think. They don't want to have to figure it out for themselves. They just want to be told what the next step is so they can get there easier and faster. And so, it's interesting because, like, I mean, I've been in this world a long time, literally helping for over a decade, tens of thousands of business owners in all kinds of markets. And it doesn't matter what market, the number one reason that people cancel from a membership is overwhelm, and so it's too much information. And so the whole thing about a membership is that you want to do the opposite of that. You don't want your people overwhelmed. You just want them making progress. If they're making progress, they'll stay. So it's a counterintuitive to what most people think. Most people think the more information I give, the more value I create, but that's not true. And so, it's an interesting paradigm flip for a lot of people.
I stole something from my church too. So we really got in. I think we really got into the membership model. Probably we kind of accidentally stumbled into the membership out of the gate, because when we launched our first products, it was lesson plans. So we did it the hard way. We were living launch to launch and spending all of our energy, and we were doing this month to month trying to make new sales. Jocelyn was like, hey, I'll make August lessons if you'll buy them. So people would buy them, and we'd be like, oh crap, I got to buy them. And then she'd go, I got to make September's lessons if you'll buy them. So people bought them, and we're like, oh crap, we got to buy them. And we kept doing that. And then I went to an event over in the Philippines. Chris Ducker, he did an event over there called Tropical Think Tank.
Yeah.
And I met James Schramko. You know James? You know James Schramko?
Yeah.
And so I met Schramko, and we were talking one day, and he goes, show me what you're doing. And you know how James is. He's really direct. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And he goes, that's a membership, silly. Like something like that, just so kind of just like, and I looked down and I went, oh, it is. I could just get them to pay the first time and they'll keep paying the next time. Right. And so that sent us like down that rabbit hole of having people pay month after month after month. And then we learned that, so what I did was, so that year I was at church, and our church just launched something called the Next Step Station. And they kind of built this huge, like, barn looking structure back by the exit. So you couldn't get out of the building unless you walked by the Next Step Station. It was almost like the thank you page. You know what I'm saying? You can't go forward till you go to that thank you page after you buy. But what I had this epiphany, because it was so well done the way my pastor was doing that. He was like, hey, look, people, it's not about, okay, here's Jesus, and now here's your wings, here's your crown, start flying around and saving the world. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, hey man, you know, your next step is to meet someone in our community, just so you have a friend here. And then your next step after that is, could you join a small group? Maybe let's look at the small groups and figure out where people are. And then the next step was, hey, you know, you're married and you're young and you just had your first kid. You know, I think your next step is probably this parenting class with some of the elders in the church. And when I saw them lay that out, it really hit me like, man, that's what your membership has to do. It's just that next step. And then and your goal as a membership owner is to figure out where they are and what their next step is. Once you do that, they're not going to leave, you know?
That's totally it. We teach a concept called the success path. And this is essentially it, where on, you know, when they first come in, that's where they are. And then ultimately they're trying to accomplish something. They're wanting some kind of outcome. They're wanting to make some kind of progress in their life. That's the end goal. But people don't go from not knowing how to play the guitar to being the next Eric Clapton overnight. They don't go from not knowing how to paint to becoming the next Picasso overnight. They don't go from a white belt to a black belt overnight. It's a journey. And what in the membership world, what we have to do is get people centered on the fact that this is a continuous progress. And they've got to focus themselves on where they are and focus on what's the next right step for them. And as long as they just focus on the next right step, they'll make progress. And that's the whole thing for us as membership site owners. As long as people are making progress, they will stay. Because through all my years, I have never, ever heard of somebody canceling a membership site because they're experiencing too much success. Like, I've never heard somebody say, you know what? Like, I'm experiencing way too much progress, having way too much success, so I'm out. It doesn't happen. So as long as we focus on helping people make progress, then they're going to stay. But the challenge is that most membership site owners do not have that measuring stick of success. They do not have that success path to be able to point people back to say, look how far you've come, and to remind them of the progress that they're making. And as such, people don't associate when they are making progress to what they're learning inside the membership. So it's as important for them as it is for us as membership site owners to create that measuring stick so that people can not only see the progress that they're making, but it becomes embedded in their mind that it is because of what we are teaching and showing them inside the membership. So at the end of the day, as long as we keep them focused on the next right step, as you outlined that your pastor does, which is brilliant, it simplifies things for people. It takes it from like, oh my gosh, I got to learn all this stuff to, I just got to focus on this. And that feels easier. And when it's easier, people are much more likely to do it. And therefore, they're much more likely to make progress.
Yeah, we have roles in our business. We have a director of content and we have a director of retention. And it's funny, at first, when we first got into the membership model, we looked at what you just said as more of a, I guess the best way to say it was like a customer success or customer support role. Like we were thinking, let's serve the customer, let's take care of them. If they get off track, let's get them back on. But what I realized is in our memberships, we really have external marketing, which is get people into the membership. But once they join, you have like internal marketing. Like you have to resell that next step to these people all the time so that they don't get confused and they don't get lost. And I actually view that person now, it's not customer support. It's like marketing. Like
totally.
you got your retention is, okay, this person, where'd they go? Okay, they disappeared for a week or two, or this person has not logged in all month. Like go resell the membership to them, but only the next thing they need. If you show, okay, the last thing they did was this course, which was, Facebook ads or whatever. And then the next one is this. And like, if you can do that you got it, that extends lifetime value and your annual income all of a sudden just explodes because they go 3 months, 6 months, 11 months, 12 months. Like that's got to be a part of your strategy, even if you don't actually have a person that you hire to do it, you know?
Yeah. It's like, well, you hit the nail on the head. Marketing doesn't stop once somebody's in the membership. You know, there's front end marketing, which is to get the people in, and then there's back end marketing, which is to keep people happy. And you know, one of the mistakes I see membership site owners make is that like creating content in their membership is very in the moment, last minute. And that's a problem because you can't create anticipation for it. So it's more like they're in the month when they've got to deliver and it's like, panic, quickly create something. And then they're like, okay, here it is. But like if you had stuff, you know, scheduled ahead of time and now you can create anticipation for it. And that anticipation pulls people from month to month to month. And there's a whole bunch of, you know, innovative retention strategies that we teach around content structure. But one of the most important is just being able to create anticipation. And that's marketing 101. That's like creating excitement for what's coming down the pipeline. And so you hit the nail right on the head. I think like, you know, marketing does not stop once somebody becomes a member. It is just different type of marketing of creating excitement for what's coming in the membership. And that's a big part of keeping people happy and excited and interested and curious and all of that, which pulls them from 1 month to the next.
I've heard you speak a couple times, and the success path is very interesting because in a way, so there's two kind of theories. There's the theory of an A to B journey in your membership. Like, for example, our history teachers do stay month after month, or I'm sorry, year after year because of convenience. But the school year is from August to May. So we do see it like a little dip in June. Yeah. We know it's coming. So we've instituted things like pauses and other things to try to, you know, mitigate that. But there are some things that have a journey, a path, and you do accomplish the goal. But then there's this other theory, like in the membership economy, what's her name? Robbie Kellerman wrote that book, I think. She talks about I think that's her name. She talks about the forever customer, right? Yeah. Where you try to keep the member forever and ever and ever. But I think in some way we found that like there's kind of a middle ground of that, like a bridge for keeping your people. Like we have our community where we sell, our path is called the Flip Your Life Blueprint, which is how we were able to quit our jobs. And we take them through the membership model. But there comes a point where our goal is to get you to 100 members. And once we see people do that, we figured out there was another step, but it was actually another subscription. We actually moved them from one community of people to another. It's Membership Masters. That's what that is. And that's a paper newsletter I send out every month. And it's a marketing calendar. It's designed like every day it tells you what to do. And it's literally like, all right, this week we're going to run a free trial with this bonus. And Monday, write this email. Tuesday, send this email. Thursday, close the cart, whatever. And like we figured out, though, there's almost a bridge that you have to go where you can create other subscriptions on top of what you do. And we actually had a problem with retention after they made it to that 100 member mark because they were in with those people and they needed to move into the next tier with those people. So what do you think about that? Are you trying to, in your theories on this, do you try to keep people as long as you can, or is there maybe a ladder or a step into different subscriptions or even upselling into other things like that?
Well, I think it's creating like the success path, so let's say there's a success path to get to 100 members. But then the focus becomes, okay, what's the stage after that? So the journey doesn't end. You know what I mean? Like if you think about it, like oftentimes people will ask me, okay, well, Stu, what happens when people get to the end of the journey? Why would they stay part of the membership? But here's the thing that I always say back, like, okay, let's say somebody earns their black belt. Does that mean that they stop practicing the fundamentals? Right. Does that mean they stop going deep in the fundamentals that got them there? No. In fact, I know several black belts. I know a world champion karate master, and he was 2-time world champion. And he will tell you that when it comes to becoming a world-class world champion, he focuses on the fundamentals of punching and kicking. And so I think one of the things that is a misconception is that once you get to a certain level, you don't have to worry about all that stuff. You just got to geek out on all the advanced stuff. And I'm actually of the opposite mindset. I actually believe that mastery comes in going deeper and deeper with the fundamentals. And so I think part of that, as somebody evolves, it's about circling back, And so even in our business, we we have a consistent process, if you will, of just looking at, for us, there's 3 main areas that we always focus on: traffic, conversion, and retention. That's it. Like, we don't get caught up in all the bells and whistles and the new fancy platforms and this strategy and that tactic. All the, that stuff doesn't, jump out at us. We don't invest a lot of time there. We just focus on, okay, like right now, for example, we have a new piece of software that we launched late last year called Searchy, and Searchy.io. And basically what it does is it solved a major problem for us where we were creating a lot of content where I was answering a lot of questions as it related to membership sites. And what we found was I was answering the same questions over and over again. Okay. And it got to the point where I was just like, I know I have answered this somewhere, but I have no idea in what video, at what point I had answered it. So long story short, our team built essentially a search engine for all of our videos. So now what happens is that when somebody has a question, they go to this search engine, they type in the keyword, and swoop, it'll bring up all the results to the moment in the video when I was answering that specific thing.
That's amazing. That is, because we've got 1,500 to 2,000 Q&As from all of our Q&As. Like, well, that is incredible, bro. Like,
it'll be a game changer for you, because here's what happened for us. Our support went from where we were getting roughly about 100 new questions a day down to less than 10, because now people could find their answers easier and faster just by going to this search engine. And it's evolved so much from there, especially, of interest for people who are running memberships, because now we have a player that essentially replaces like the need to use Vimeo as an example. Because if people are using Vimeo, just a heads up, if you haven't got it yet, you're about to get a notice from them that you'll need to upgrade to a commercial license. They've changed their licensing terms. And basically what they are saying is if your Vimeo player is behind a paywall, you need to pay for a commercial license, which is going to spike your fees from a couple $100s a year to several $1,000s a year. One of the women in my mastermind, Rachel, her Vimeo fees went from $200 a year to $5,000 a year.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So they're basically going through their client list and just like, sending out these notices. So the new Searchy player replaces Vimeo, and we have an integration with Vimeo, so you can literally pull all your Vimeo videos over and switch it over. But the reason you'll want to do that is not only could people search right in the video, but they can also we can see down to the second what people are watching. And why that's fascinating for us in the membership world is that when we are trying to understand our people, we want to see what are they consuming, how far are they going, and then based on that, we want to be able to send them notifications of like, hey, here's the next thing you should look at, blah, blah, blah. And what's even more cool in terms of where this is going, this will be out in a couple months, is that you'll be able to create almost like a Netflix style environment. So most memberships, 99.999% of memberships, are a one-size-fits-all experience. So if you're in the early stages of learning how to, in this case, start a membership, you're going to see the same content as somebody who is further down the path. But what this with Searchy is going to enable you to do is to create a customized path based on where people are. So just like when you log into your Netflix account, you're going to see different shows based on what you're consuming and what you're watching. Right. And as opposed to, if you log into mine, it's going to be different. And so the same membership experience is now going to be available. Once you start using the Searchy player, you can start feeding people content that is relevant to them.
Is it going to be embeddable? Are you going to embed the video?
Yeah. So you can do that.
Because we use a forum for our membership because we're really big on forums. So I can embed the video, but then like when that video is done, is it going to just show like, oh, this is the next question you might have or something like that? Or
exactly. Yeah. So you'll be able to,
dude.
You'll be able to feed it. So anyway, I bring all this up because like, when we look at like the fundamentals, we were this morning having a discussion and we just look at conversion points. And so it's like, okay, how many people are coming to the page, and then from that, how many people for us are taking us up on the free trial? And from there, how many people in the free trial are then converting into paying members? And so it's just looking at the fundamentals. And at the end of the day, like I was talking with my business partners and they were discussing about changing a couple things. And I'm like, hold up. That's not the problem. Like the problem, like we have a very high conversion. Once somebody comes into the free trial, there's a very high conversion. Just over 70% of those people who start the free trial end up becoming paid customers. That's not the problem. The problem that we have is the number of people coming and starting a free trial. Yeah. And so I think, like, again, at the end of the day, we can get easily distracted by all the bells and whistles and the new strategies and tactics, but it's the fundamentals. It's the fundamentals of traffic, conversion, and retention. And so the same principles apply when it comes to a success path. We have to remind our members that it's not just doing something once. It's about mastering that. And when you look at like the karate masters, or you look at like people who can play guitar at a really high level, they master the fundamentals. And I think when we are looking at the journey of our people, there should be a sense of pride of circling back and going through the fundamentals again, because we're coming through it with a different lens and we learn at a deeper level. And that's where the real mastery and progress happens. We've got
a program. We do coach a few people, but it's more of I don't really love to do one-on-one coaching because it's so time intensive and I don't want to charge a ton of money for it. And it's like, but we do have a few people kind of keep the heartbeat of our audience so we know what's going on. And we have this audit, right? And so like a guy that in our community, he's got 3,000 members. He's doing great. He's growing, and he was working with us. And he does this audit. And one of the checklists that we have is, hey, on your trials, on the thank you page, do you offer a deal and a bonus so that maybe somebody will just upgrade to a quarterly or annual right there? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Fundamental, right? You sell one thing, you sell the next thing. Like you just your upsells, which would be a conversion path basically. Yeah. And he's like, oh my God, I don't do that. He puts it on and does like 89 upsells the first week into his quarterly program. He gets all that money up front that he can go redeploy into ads immediately to get more free members. And then he's still got, 100 other people that may become a monthly member. But it's like, just because he did that audit, it's like you're saying, the fundamentals, man,
And that's the fun thing. Like for example, once people get to 100 members, they've got momentum on their side. So every little change like that has an amplified effect. And, we're always looking, again, like I said, for, the new strategy, the new this, the new that. But, it's so much more powerful to go back and revisit the fundamentals and make those tweaks. Like that one tweak, like look how much that one tweak is impacting his business immediately and long-term. Oh, yeah. And imagine the compounding effect of that. This is especially for us in the membership world, the compounding effect of making those kinds of little tweaks have over an extended period of time. And that's where we love to camp out. It's really deepening the level of mastery of the material. So it's not just about learning it one time. It's not just about like trying it one time. It's really about mastering it. And that's how we become great.
Well, if you get the thing, this is another thing. People are used to making the sale, and it's hard for all of us to look far enough into the future for it to matter, right? And like Jocelyn, one time we were going over traffic and we were looking at retention, because I kind of handle getting new people in. She kind of takes over and she opens the door and says, hey, y'all, welcome. Come on in. Yeah. You know what I mean? She's like taking care of them. And, but she was like, we were looking at it. I'm like, man, if I could do this, I think I could get this many members. And she's like, yeah, but there's 1,000 people here. What if we just got them all to stay one more month? And I was like,
wow, what a powerful question.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yeah, that's incredible. Let's do that. So, and we worked on retention, and we had a program that was like, we were getting about 7-8 good months of retention in before we did other things. We extended that just with a couple little emails. Like Jocelyn added like a couple emails, and then she started collecting birthdays, and she started handwriting birthday cards to our members. Wow. And we went from 7 months to 11 months.
Wow.
And like just like a couple quarters. And it was like when you do little things like that are kind of outside the box, you build that loyalty. And like when you start building loyalty in your membership, crazy things happen. I got this guy, his name's Jeff Twitty. He's up in Ohio. He joined our membership and was able to like quit his job building his own program. He sent me a message one time and said, hey, I just want you to know, I know you check in on me if I don't log in and things like that, but bro, don't worry about it. I'm going to pay you for the rest of my life, and I may never log in again, but you don't have to worry about me, man. I'm going to be here for you. You know what I'm saying? I was like, man, that's crazy for somebody to send you an email like that. But it's that next step. Take care of them. Just that little check-in can just blow your revenue up on the other side. You know what I mean?
Well, and you hit a really good point for everybody in the membership world to really understand. And that is that it's exciting and sexy to always think about how to get new people in. But there's actually a ton of profitability in just focusing on how to take care of the people who are already in. And just like you said, it's way easier to extend the lifetime value of that customer than it is, and way more profitable for the business to extend that lifetime value of that existing member than it is to try to get new members in. But that's counterintuitive. It's always like, if we're always thinking about getting new people in, but if you got a leaky bucket, it doesn't matter how many people you get in the front door, they're leaking out. And so you got to plug that bucket, and then everything becomes so much easier.
And the one biggest selling point that I give to people for memberships based on launch to launch, which is what I call that, right? Like is high energy versus steady energy, right? Like launches are very taxing and overwhelming, but if you can get your membership rolling, there is a steady pace to it. Like you've got a nice flow. You're taking care of people. You have future revenue reports where you're like, well, the average member stays 10 months and I'm making this much money. I can see that. But if you have that leaky bucket, you've just put yourself back into the high energy thing because you're working so hard to beat churn.
That's exactly it.
You've defeated the purpose of even having a membership in the first place. You know
That's
what I'm saying?
Exactly it. Yeah. And that just comes back again to looking at those fundamental numbers. Where's the problem in the business? Is the problem in traffic? Is the problem in conversion? Or is the problem in retention? And if you're losing people as quickly as you're getting them in, that's what you focus on. Like, plug that hole, because if you plug that hole, then everything else has an amplified effect. But if you don't plug that hole, all it is just more water that's going to be leaking out of the bucket just faster. You know what I mean?
It's like those guys that sell stuff on the side of the highway. You know what I'm saying? They just sell everything they got. They throw the rest in the ditch, and then they go back to the yard sales to get more, and they come back. You're just doing that. That's all you're doing, man. You got no like recurring revenue, you know?
Exactly.
Hey, let me ask you, most of the people that are listening to Membership Masters, this podcast is really like, you know, I've been talking to just tons of, I just been bringing people on that love to geek out about the membership model. That's what this whole thing's about. And the people that are listening are the people who have existing memberships. And I think that one of the most important things is team. Like, that's really how you kind of, you know, can manage a nice solid size membership without you having to be involved in every little single gear and nut and bolt and all that. So could you just give us a glimpse into maybe like what your team kind of looks like how you kind of roll through, just from a high level? Doesn't have to be like every specific role. But who handles traffic? Who handles conversion? Who handles retention? And then you as the, you know, or how do you think that this should be structured, like for a membership owner who's wanting to be like a CEO membership guy, the leader, the CVO, the vision guy? But then what does our team need to look like to manage traffic, conversion, and retention?
Well, we definitely have like roles that I would say kind of fall under those buckets. You know, we have Bree, in our case, who's our marketing director. So she is just focused on getting people in. Like, that's it. That's her focus, getting people in. We then have Rick, who's our content director, and his focus is obviously on producing content that is relevant for our audience, both inside of our paid memberships, but also on the front end. You know,
so is he the success path guy? Basically, he's kind of working on the content that's in that, and what you said there. Just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, does that mean your success path actually extends outside of the membership? You're bringing them in.
It's always evolving, because at the end of the day, like, as you noted with your when you said earlier, like, people will get to that 100 members, and then what? You know what I mean? And so, like, the success path is going to evolve with your people. And this is why it's really important to always keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your community. So we survey our community at least once a quarter to kind of gauge, you know, the progress that they're making against that success path, because that also influences the type of content. If we had in the beginning, all of our people are in, let's just say, stage 1 and 2, then the content is going to be more focused on the basics of getting going. But as the membership evolves and we start to see that, wait a minute, now more of our members are in more stage 3, 4, then we want to make sure that our content evolves to reflect that, to serve them with where they're at. So that's a really important piece. So yeah, so Bree's focused on the front end as our marketing director. Rick is our content director, and he focuses on both our paid content and, of course, our free content. And then we have two people in particular, Shanna, who's our community director. And so she's deeply involved in our community. She knows our community really intimately. She's kind of like represents the community, if you will, so she's the voice of the community. And she's very much involved in just like keeping conversations going, but then thinking through the strategy of like, how do we mobilize our people, through different times of the year. And so she's very well connected with the people. And then we have, so that's Shanna. And then we have Shauna. So Shanna and Shauna.
That's not confusing in meetings, I guarantee it.
Totally.
It's like getting your kids' names wrong all the time. Like Anna, Isaac, Bob, whoever you are. Right?
It's exactly it. But so Shanna's our community director, and then Shauna is our customer experience director. And so she's really focused on the customer service. So when people have questions about, billing and all that kind of stuff, she's involved with that. She's very much involved in supporting our customers when they've got questions and things of that nature. But so Shanna and Shauna work very closely together. And through that, they are really, their focus is retention. So again, Bree's on the front end, focused on getting people in as our marketing director. Rick is focused on our content and helping us produce content that is serving our people, moving them forward. Shanna and Shauna are focused on retention, keeping people happy.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I love that, man. We've got that. That's kind of the path we're on. I think a mistake that we made when we first started building out our team was we made the mistake every membership owner makes, I think, is you get so laser focused on content, you put all your resources into, this has to be the course, the best, the this, and you're not really like thinking, well, wait a minute, that's not what my people need, right?
Right.
And you get like you skew on the scale over toward content. Everybody has a tendency to do this. And that's what we're doing right now is we're kind of flattening it out to where we've got like I just hired a brand new director of content. This is someone who's going to take that over completely and build her own team. And then we've got the director of retention, build that out and over. And right now we're still in we're in the agency level of our marketing. I think we're hiring agencies to handle that. But I would love to maybe at the end, I think you've got to have your marketing people. They've got to be almost from the community or they have to be believing in the mission. It can't just, I feel like sometimes we do it for hire and it's like, that's not exactly the message we want, but I would love to pull that marketing person in. And we're seeing and we've been raising people up from our community, like the content person we're looking at, or the next retention person. Like I want my community managers to have been through my community, so that they're really embedded in the mission and the path and they believe in it. Right. Cause if you're piecemealing it out, eventually you lose some of that belief and passion that you got to have to lead a community, Well,
so we've had some interesting discoveries along this line because the people that I mentioned, Bree, Rick, Shanna, and Shauna, those are our, essentially our leadership team. Under each of them, they have their own mini teams, So Bree has people that that are on our greater team that are essentially on her, support her on the front end. And then same with Rick and same with Shanna and Shauna. But what we found was when it came to hiring, it is great to hire community-focused people like Shanna and Shauna. Both of them came from our community. But for other roles, it was actually more beneficial to hire people who were not from within the community. Now,
fresh eyes kind of deal.
Yes,
looking at stuff.
Yes, but I do need to preface this because we're more in an entrepreneurial market, entrepreneurial niche. So what that tends to attract are entrepreneurs. And the reason I'm sharing this is because we went through a period when we were almost exclusively hiring from within the community. But what we found was there was a much higher turnover because people were using it as a platform to essentially jumpstart their other entrepreneurial ventures. Right. And so it created a tricky situation because obviously we want, to support them, to see them do well. But at the same time, it disrupts the team flow when you got people coming and going. And so
the continuity just disappears at that point.
And so once we made that switch, it was a big difference. We've had our core team, that core leadership team now for several years, and it's created a lot more of a steady flow. And so yeah, I just throw that out there because this is just our experience. And I'm not saying it's like, the be all end all in terms of how to hire, but we have really realized it has been more productive to hire community focused people from the community. But for all other roles, we look to hire them outside of the community.
Yeah, and it's so weird how many niches, because memberships truly can be done in anything. I've got this. We've got a member. His name's Kenny, and he's out in San Diego. So it's one of the. I've got my top 10 weirdest niche memberships I've ever seen over here to my side that I always keep updating as somebody weirder comes in. And these people, I love y'all, but you're weird. And so he teaches people how to raise backyard chickens, and he's considered the world's foremost expert on raising backyard chickens. Now, Kenny could probably hire his chicken people in all these roles, and they're not going to go out and be the guy that teaches. He's got like a paper newsletter about raising chickens and eggs and all this stuff. And but like if you are in the entrepreneurial space where you're trying to teach people how to do something in their own solopreneur business, you got to look at that. So it's really just like, what's the DNA of like your membership? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you talk about weird niche markets. I had a great one. So we have a woman in our community last weekend. She just closed the relaunch of her membership. She added 420 new members, bringing her total of members up to 1127. So she's over 1,100 members now. But she's in a market where she teaches people how to paint decorative door hangers. I'm like, what? I had no idea. But, Tamara Bennett, she joined our community and then launched this membership. And right off the bat, she had several hundred members. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then now she's grown it. She's over 1,100 members and be teaching people decorative door hangers.
It's unbelievable.
It's just crazy, right?
We have a member named Teresa Perleyberg. And it's something mountain. I can't remember her domain, or I give her a shout out. I'll put it in the show notes. But so she's from the middle of nowhere, North Dakota. I mean, she probably is the last spot on the internet. Like that's where they ran the wire and they stopped before they went into Canada. You know what I mean? But she's up in North Dakota. And so she joins the community, and we're like, what do you do? And she goes, well, I shear sheep, and then I take the sheep wool and I needle felt them into little animal statues. And I want to teach people how to do that. And we're like, wait a minute. So you live in North Dakota. You actually have a sheep farm. You shear the wool and you turn it into a little statue. And she actually sent me one. I've got it on my desk. And she's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, sounds great. So it's called like needle felting or something, and it can only be done with like fresh wool or whatever.
Wow.
So listen, so she's got
crazy
nothing going on. We help her create a course. We're really big on community. That I think community is what really cements you as a membership, and not just selling a course monthly payment plans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she creates this community of worldwide sheep shearing needle felters, right? Bro, she's got like 400 or 500 members paying like $79, $80 a month.
Jeez.
And dude, listen to this. So she made so much money to do this. She added on the back end of it a subscription box service to send you the wool. She found a wool supplier.
Wow.
So now people join this to learn how to make these things, and then she supplies the wool on the back end for you to keep your habit going every month.
Genius.
Right? Yeah. So listen, so they bought a school, her and her business partner. They bought an old school that was for sale. And this has become such a big cottage industry where they're the worldwide leader in sheep shearing needle felting that they are turning these into like a little bed and breakfast. And they're going to use the gym in the old elementary school to have conferences 4 times a year. They bought a building and they're getting sheep shearing needle felters to travel to North Dakota to be
amazing.
To do it for a week. But I mean, it's so people always say like, is this possible in every niche? I'm like, well, let me tell you about Teresa.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. Let's real quick before we I don't want to take up too much of your time, man. I really appreciate you. I love geeking out with people about memberships because I just believe in it so much. And when I was writing down the list when I started this podcast, I was like, man, I got to talk to STU MCLAREN. But let's talk a little bit about we talk about retention a lot, but like community itself. Like I think that's so many people come to us and their biggest misconception is, well, I've got a course. I'll just put it in and charge monthly for it. I'm like, no, you just created a payment plan that people are going to bail on halfway through.
Right.
And so we really focus, I'd say 75% of our actual effort is in fostering community, because if people have friends, they don't want to leave the community. If they know you are there for them, they don't want to leave the community. So like what do you think about building and cementing community in your membership? And like, is there anything you guys do that you especially have found, successful in making the people I think the turning point in any successful membership is when your members start relying on each other. That's what our community does, man. Someone will ask a question, and before I can even log in, there's 12 people that have answered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When that happens, your membership can last forever. Like, how do you guys foster community?
Well, I agree with you. And for years, I've been saying people come for the content, but they stay for the community.
I have said that so many times. I think we're reading each other's minds. It's amazing.
But that community fostering component happens the very moment that somebody completes their transaction to join the membership. And so what I would encourage everybody to do is to think right from the get-go, like what happens on that thank you page. The thank you page is one of the most important pieces of virtual real estate because it sets the tone for the experience that they're about to have. So they've just completed their purchase and they're thinking like, am I like an idiot for doing this? Am I the only one that has joined this membership? Like they're a little bit hesitant right now. So on that thank you page, what I'd love to encourage everybody to do is to have a very awesome video that pulls in people within your community to immediately help people see like they're not alone. And this is like a community of people just like them. So the thank you page is really important. And we actually pour a lot of energy into our thank you page videos. We use it as a way to immediately see the culture of who we are and our values and that we don't take ourselves too lightly. We have a lot of fun and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, what's kind of interesting is that our thank you page videos have actually become renowned where when we're on a webinar, this happened last year, we were on a webinar in the midst of a promotion and somebody in the comments is like, oh my goodness, I just joined. You guys got to join just to see the thank you video. Like
that's amazing. That's awesome.
So I do think that that's really important. But then here's the real focus. What you do from an experience standpoint in that first 24 hours and in that first 7 days essentially establishes the tone for that member forever. And so one of the things that we really focus on is getting them immersed in the community as quickly as possible. So I'll give you a couple tactical things. One is that we actually went to our existing members and said, would any of you be open to joining a welcoming committee? So that when new members come in and they do something that I'm going to share with you in a minute, your role is essentially to welcome them. Just kind of like, imagine somebody like is coming to a dinner party and, they ring the doorbell and instead of like helping themselves just come on into the house, there's somebody there saying, oh, welcome. Hey, Shane, come on in. Hey, listen, can I get you a drink? Like, hey, actually, let me introduce you to this person and that person. So it's a welcoming committee. And that's their role. That's their role is to, welcome people, make them feel great. The second thing is that we always have clear next steps for people when they first join. So one of the very first steps is for them to introduce themselves to the community. Now, this is always a very awkward thing because if you were to say, okay, Stu, introduce yourself to the group. Nobody wants to come into the group and say, hey, my name is Stu and here's why I'm awesome. I'm awesome because of awesome reason number one and awesome. Nobody wants to do that, right? So this is why like when you ask somebody to just introduce themselves, it's always awkward. People don't know how to do it. So how do you remove that awkwardness? Well, you give them a template and you say, just answer these 3 questions. And the questions are questions that are going to create connection to other people in your community. You want to create connection points. So for example, here's a couple examples of connection points. I was born in England. So when people hear that, all the Brits are like, oh, he's one of us. Or that I live in Canada. And so as soon as the Canadians hear, they're like, oh, he's one of us. Right. Or like if I say, I love driving my Mini Cooper. All the Mini Cooper enthusiasts are like, oh, yes. Or if I say that I played sports at a really high level, like we won 2 national championships when I was in college. All the athletes are there. Or if I say that we have adopted our son from South Africa. All the adoptive parents or people who have been adopted, there's a connection there. And so these are what are called connection points. And when you are setting your people up to introduce themselves to the community, ask questions that are going to pull out those connection points, because then that begins to form the relationships with others in the community. And if they can form relationships with others right away and start dialogue, those relationships are the very thing that's going to set the tone from that point forward. And so then it's not just about the content. Now it is about the community, and people are connected, not just to you, but to each other. And when that happens, that's when they're going to stay a lot longer. Yeah,
that's amazing, dude. We discovered too, another tactical thing that we do. So one of the first things that we ask people to do, so like we have this little thing, we have like a widget in the sidebar, and it shows everybody that's logged in, right? Mm-hmm. So there's always like, 20 or 30 people sitting over there. You can see their faces. But when we first started, it was little gray heads. It was those little avatar heads, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what would be even easier than introducing themselves? What if they just uploaded a picture of their family? Mm-hmm. And we said, hey, the first thing we send out is, hey, here's your profile. Here's how to upload your picture. That's all you got to do. And like, because people want to brag about their kids and they want to show them off their spouse and they want to put their own selfie up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we started getting people to do that. And we asked specifically though, we say, put a picture of your family. Because we want to see, because we're a really family focused brand. And we want, hey, that person's got kids my kid's age. Like that picture tells 1,000 words. You know what I mean?
It's a connection point.
It's a connection point, right? And then the next thing we figured out was, people don't necessarily, they didn't want to introduce themselves for that same reason, but I'm going to steal that. And I'm going to go through those questions and I'm going to redo that. But but they always have a question. Everybody always has a question. And so the second thing we ask people to do is to ask a question. But here's what happens. It's on a form. It's not in the forums. It's not anywhere else. It's just, hey, ask us a question. Ask us a question. But then our team will reach back out to them and say, this is an amazing question, and here's your answer. Would you mind if we posted this and got some more feedback from the community in the forums? So we kind of do their first post for them. We tag them in it. You see what I'm saying? So we kind of bridge that. I think bridging the awkwardness is what we're both saying here.
Yeah.
And once the awkwardness is gone, it's like going over to somebody at a party and you're like, let me introduce you to a few people.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's the feeling you got to give for people to do it.
And when you're asking the questions, like I was saying, using that template, ask a question like, what brought you to join this community, or what are you hoping to get out of this community, or what is your number one challenge with whatever the focus of the community is. And same sort of thing, getting them to share what they're asking about. And then one of the prompts that we give our welcoming committee is to specifically tag somebody else in the community that can answer that question, so that the dependency is not like, okay, Stu is going to come up with all the answers, or Shane's going to come up with all the answers, or whatever it may be. No. Like, we want the community, just like you said, responding first. And so part of that welcoming committee is they have a sense of, who in the community specializes in different things, or has experience with different things, or can help out in different ways. And so when they're tagging the other people, now there's multiple people who are dialoguing with that new member. And then that's when like that whole connection starts to really take shape.
Oh, well, listen, brother, I'm not going to take up too much time. I got a feeling if we let ourselves run here, we'd be here till about 4:30 geeking out about everything that's ever happened in memberships. But we're going to leave the people a little hungry for more. We're going to leave them a little hungry for more, brother. And listen, man, tell everybody, one, I appreciate you for coming on here, dude. You are a true membership master, and I love your work. We've interacted a few times in the past, and you've always been so genuine and awesome on stage and off every time we've ever talked. And I just really appreciate you, your mission, and everything you're doing in the membership world. I fully believe that if every person who wanted to do anything in their business would create that recurring revenue, they would see such a dramatic improvement in their family's future. And it's just so important right now, especially in the world that we're living in. But I just want to thank you for being here, and tell everybody like where they can find you, where they can connect with you online, and anything that you're doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'd encourage people to go and listen to our Marketing Your Business podcast. If you just go to marketingyourbusiness.com, it'll take you there, or just go search iTunes for it. We also have another podcast, which I think everybody would find super relevant here. It's called It's a Tribe Thing. And basically every single week we share stories of people in our community who are doing amazing stuff with their memberships in all kinds of different markets. So there's lots of strategies that people are using there as well. But yeah, marketingyourbusiness.com is probably the best place. And then of course, I'm online. You can find me, it's my name, Stu MCLAREN. And then probably the central hub is the easiest one of all. It's stu.me, STU.me. You can't misspell that one.
That's 5 letters, people. That's 5 letters. Come on now. You got to get there. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you.